The writer Anne Helen Peterson wrote a newsletter in 2023 titled, "Are You in the Portal?" Peterson proposes that many women go through a period of transformation somewhere between their mid-30s and late 40s, roughly around the time of perimenopause. In the essay, Peterson interviews a Jungian psychotherapist named Laura Bjork, who explains that for stability types, people who have diligently checked every box in life, midlife can kick off a search for meaning. This might take the form of the stereotypical midlife crisis, or it can instead be, in Bjork's words, an awakening. For Peterson and for others, the portal feels like an intense surge of creativity. According to Bjork, this experience is more intense if you've been absorbed by parenting, by your career, by an illness, by something for some time. Reading Peterson's essay, I took stock of my own life. Feel like I'm gripped by a weird creative surge, finished drafting a book in what felt like spirit possession, check, check. Feeling hot all the time, maybe that's perimenopause, check. Always did everything right. Ascending the career ladder, husband, house, and 2 kids, check, 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 check. Coming on the heels of some pretty traumatic experiences and diagnoses, check, check, check. Oh crap, I realized. I'm in the portal. Now, I don't think that the portal is limited to my age and gender. There are lots of portals. Adolescence is a portal. Falling in love can be a portal. Falling out of love, also a portal. The death of a loved one, a partner, a parent, a sibling, a child, that's definitely a portal. The diagnosis of illness or disability can be a portal. Coming out or transitioning, those are definitely portals. When someone we love goes through a portal, we might get sucked into a portal of our own. All of these things are uncomfortable. Sometimes they're unbearable. And if you're perimenopausal, they're sweaty. But portals are transformative. And out of the portal, we emerge as someone new. Here's how I arrived at the portal. Starting with a brief version of my adult life. Good student, good grades, good college, good grad school, married a good man, got a tenure-track job as a humanities professor, which is basically like breaking into Hollywood. After a psychologically grueling PhD, I got a real job with real health insurance and finally went to therapy. Yay! Nearing 30, my husband and I decided to have a kid. Becoming a parent is, by the way, absolutely a portal. Nothing prepares you for becoming a mother, and nothing prepared me for becoming a mother the way I did. My older child was born at 35 weeks with a traumatic delivery. Much of his babyhood and young toddlerhood took place during the early days of COVID, a pretty horrible time to be a new parent with postpartum anxiety and PTSD symptoms. In 2021, Sophie Gilbert wrote an essay for The Atlantic on the subject of matrescence, describing the period of intense transformation, physiological, psychological, spiritual, that accompanies new motherhood. For Gilbert, and for me, the isolation of COVID profoundly shaped this experience of matrescence. As Gilbert put it, "This new person I've become since I gave birth is a person virtually no one knows. Going through a portal and no one there to witness it. How lonely, how terrifying." Then the world opened up again and my baby grew bigger. It took me a while to decide whether I wanted a second child, fearing another pregnancy would go even worse. Well, it did. I got the flu and went into labor at just shy of 23 weeks, on the cusp of viability. After 10 terrifying days in the hospital, they sent me home to wait. My second child managed to hold on until 34 weeks, but he still had more surprises for us. 5 weeks in the NICU, to be exact. After my first child was born, I had sought answers for why his birth was so dramatic, although he is a very dramatic person, so. Just unlucky, multiple maternal fetal medicine specialists told me. Could have happened to anybody. But after my second child, too, was born early, I couldn't shake the worry that something was wrong. In 2024, I was diagnosed with multiple autoimmune diseases. An answer to my complicated pregnancies, and a whole host of other questions I hadn't even been asking. For example, I spent almost a decade writing a scholarly book about hunger, and it turns out I've been malnourished for most of my life. Maybe my body was trying to tell me something when I chose this field of study? I could not make sense of what had happened to me, the difficult pregnancies, the disabling illnesses. I had a lot of ways of making sense of the world, but none of them really fit my situation. I didn't even know if I should try to make sense of my life, or whether that would give these difficult experiences too much power over me. In Peterson's essay on the portal, the Jungian psychotherapist Björk explains that midlife often compels us to stop, to take stock of ourselves, to ask questions. What am I? What is the life that I want? What impact do I want to make? What do I want to create? This process often involves a search for meaning in astrology or witchcraft or a little religion. This kind of seeking is part of what led me to UUCSH, which is a story I'll save for another sermon. But all my big questions about life and what's happening to me right now and what does it all mean, I regret to inform you that I have not really figured it out. I think I'm still in the portal, or maybe I'm not even in it yet. Several interviewees in Peterson's essay express the worry that although they think they're in the portal now, they can't be sure. What if the portal is still yet to come? Maybe, like me, you're in a portal at this very moment. Or maybe you've been through one or several. Who were you when you went into the portal? Who were you when you came out the other side? What did you learn along the way? We often turn to religion or spirituality to help us navigate the portals of our lives. Transformation is one of our UU values. We adapt to a changing world. Every faith tradition, including ours, has rituals for various portals. For coming of age, for marriage, for birth, for death. We seek community to guide us through, to witness us in these acts of transformation. Many faiths worship gods who embody the qualities of the portal. In modern paganism, the goddess Hecate is represented through 3 different life stages: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Which one of these I feel like on any given day really depends on the day. The Roman god Janus is the god of doorways and gates, transitions and time, beginnings and endings, and is often represented with 2 faces, one looking back and one looking forward. Sounds like the portal to me. So far, I've been talking a lot about the portal and birth. On one level, I mean birth in the literal sense. Birth is always a portal for the person giving birth, for the person being born, and often for everyone else in their vicinity. But metaphorically, we might think of life's portals as a series of rebirths. We go into the portal as one person and are reborn as someone else on the other side. Now I want to shift from talking about birth on this personal scale to birth on a national scale. Birth has another name when we're speaking about the birth or rebirth of nations. We call this kind of birth a founding. As you may know from my tendency to sprinkle historical facts into every conversation, I am a professor of American Studies and a historian. My job is to interpret our past and make it useful to our present. Like many of you, I have been thinking a lot about our country, the fate of our nation. And so here is my historian's opinion. I think our nation is going through a portal right now. We are all being forced to live the Unitarian Universalist value of adapting to change. One way or another, America is going to be reborn into something new. We are living through a founding era. This is not the first time our nation has found itself at such a crossroads. Recently, at my behest, the Staying Comfortable Sharing Circle discussed part of Holly Jackson's 2019 book, American Radicals: How 19th Century Protest Shaped the Nation. The book tells the story of the activist movements of the antebellum period that culminated in the Civil War and the abolition of slavery. It is the story of our nation passing through a violent and transformative portal. People who lived through this moment recognized it as such. In 1854, the federal government called out troops against protesters in Boston who resisted the rendition of Anthony Burns. Burns had self-liberated from slavery, and under the Fugitive Slave Act, Massachusetts was sending him back to his enslaver in Virginia. Tens of thousands of people turned out to protest. As Jackson writes, for some in the crowd, this was a turning point in their relationship to the law and its enforcers. The American military was there to defend against them as traitors and lawbreakers in the name of one enslaver's property claim. The protesters' refusal to aid personally in the smooth functioning of the slave system constituted a mass act of civil disobedience. One observer described the radicalizing effect on the populace. We went to bed one night, old-fashioned, conservative, compromise Union Whigs, and waked up stark-mad abolitionists. It was a turning point. It was a portal. Plenty of UU ancestors played a role in this pivotal moment in our history. Thomas Wentworth Higginson, a Unitarian minister, was injured while attempting to liberate Burns from the courthouse where he was jailed. With a wound on his face that would leave a lifelong scar, Higginson returned to his congregation and preached a sermon. He said, "I am glad of the discovery that I live under a despotism. I have lost the dream that ours is a land of peace and order. I can only make life worth living for by becoming a revolutionist." Higginson saw himself and his country going through a portal. He was forever changed, and he knew America would be too. Abolitionists like Higginson conceived of their movement and the Civil War as a second American Revolution, a new birth of the United States, another founding. Today, this history sounds eerily familiar. People in chains, federal forces with guns, and thousands upon thousands of people in the streets saying no. A grad school classmate of mine, Daniel Farbman, is a law professor and a scholar of antebellum America. In an essay called Founders All, he compares our current crisis to the 1850s. Farbman writes, "If the chaos around us is the collapse of something, it must also be the birth of something else. In other words, we find ourselves in a founding moment. whether we like it or not. In this founding moment, all of us have become founders. If we want to live in a better world, we must build it together. Our world often feels like chaos and collapse. We have lost the dream, in Thomas Wentworth Higginson's words, that ours is a land of peace and order. But Farbman urges us to see it as the birth of something else. It's a founding. It's a portal. This country is in a portal right now, and so are we. The prospect of another founding is frightening. Rebirth is always daunting. The portal is a scary place. And yet we keep going through it again and again. We've all been through portals before. We all know how to change. If it's any consolation, the portal is temporary. As the poet Robert Frost wrote, "I can see no way out but through." Transformation is one of our values. Part of our mission as a congregation is to transform the world. If we can endure the portals of our own lives, if we can emerge from them with belief in the power of transformation, then let us bring this experience, this hope, to the transformations racking this country, to this portal we find ourselves in now. So let me ask again, who were we when we went into the portal? Who will we be when we come out the other side? What will we learn along the way?